This is the 21.5 Show.
You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
Whether you're a professional pilot or want to be one, you're in the right place.
Let's get started.
Join professional aviators Dylan and Max as they talk their experience in the airlines, business aviation, and more.
Life is good.
Industry experts, unique stories, and plenty of fun. This is the 21.5 Show.
Here we go.
Welcome back. It's another episode of the 21.5 Show, the podcast for professional pilots by professional pilots. Professional pilot number one on the microphone here. My name is Dylan. Hello and welcome.
My name is Max. I guess I'm professional pilot number two. Welcome.
Well, it's because on our screen, Max, I'm on the left side. You're on the right side on my layout. I don't know how it is on your layout, but I feel like that's the number one side.
It's irrelevant.
Exciting show for...
Who we got today?
A good show today. Brooks, our friend from Vaerus Jet Sales, rejoins us to give us a little market update on what is going on in the world of aircraft transactions. And then we address a interesting topic on pilot ego. Do you know any pilots that have an ego that needs to be managed every once in a while?
No, most are
in check.
Most very low key. Very low key. Generally.
Yeah. So
we talk about. I like how we talk about this like intricate. I feel like it's like a dance, right? It's like two people that are dancing, and then like which would be like the broker and the the buyer, of an airplane, and they're kind of in the middle of this dance, and then you're the chief pilot, and you're kind of on the sidelines. You're like, oh, how do I cut in? How do I get in on this? Like, and that's I think the key is gracefully.
That's right. Well,
you gotta wait for the right part of the song, and then you step onto the dance floor and make your entrance and be like, hello, can I join?
Wait for the mic, the bass.
It's a little awkward, but
bass to drop. Well, step one is you need to know what you're doing on the dance floor. Otherwise, you're just
have this in your mind right now. Can't you just see like these people that are like in suits or whatever, and they're just kind of like, and then you have the guy on the sidelines in the jeans and the New Balance white shoes and like the tucked in polo shirt that's like a little bit too small, and he's like, not yet. You gotta wait for the.
I'll
right
take it from here.
Okay, all right. Hey guys, how are you? My name's Max.
I'm in.
I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to provide some input.
I'm here to save the day. Oh my God. It's kind of like...
I think I can provide some unique perspective here that I'd like to offer.
Do you remember the movie What About Bob? And
how could you
Bob,
not?
Remember when the son of the doctor, Richard Dreyfuss's kid, like wants to learn how to dive, and Bob teaches him like how to dive off the dock, and then then Richard Dreyfuss sees it. He says, "I'll take it from here, Bob. I'll take it from here.
I'll take it from here, Bob. Thank you." And he pushes him in the.
I feel like
Siggy. His name was Siggy.
That's right. Exactly.
I'm sailing.
Yeah, I feel like that's
movie.
The hard part when you're in an airplane deal is like you're the pilot, you're supposed to be, you're the principal's guy, but then all of a sudden there's somebody else. How do you figure all that out? That is what Brooks is going to explain to us today. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation.
Can we talk more about What About Bob though?
Okay, let's do that in the outro, Max. We got to see
Dr. Leo Marvin.
All right, let's jump into our conversation with Brooks, and then we'll do some more What About Bob at the end. Stay with us.
Your death therapy cured me. All right, we better stop this.
Max, we are so excited to welcome back to the program our aircraft transaction expert, Brooks Petit with Vaerus Jet Sales. Hi, Brooks.
Hey guys, how are you doing?
Welcome back. We're doing good.
It's good to be here and to see you in your Hawaiian shirt. Hopefully not flying today.
What do you mean? This is what I wore to fly here.
Some of us are. That's right. Max continues his battle with hotel internets around the world, so we're gonna do our best here. But Brooks, before we get going, a few episodes ago we had a discussion on the G280 and the Challenger 350,
and had received a lot of commentary. Bombardier salespeople reached out to us with some information. You have flown and probably done transactions with both of these airplanes, I imagine. So, one, can you tell us if you've flown either of these airplanes, or hopefully maybe both? And then two, give us your thoughts on this heated debate.
Well, so I'm an avid listener of the podcast as well, and so I've been following along. I tend to listen to the podcast as I'm driving to work, sometimes looking for good chuckles and sometimes for good information, and get about half of both of those that I'd like out of the podcast. So kudos to you guys. The chuckles are anywhere from talking about some Facebook group and some guys on Facebook, and then every once in a while you get some useful tidbits. So if I think you're asking me what my real opinion is, I'll give it to you. So you have to bracket this in that I am conflicted in that we do operate 3 Challenger 300 series airplanes, and we have an active G280 sales transaction and a G280 acquisition transaction. So I'm going to bracket my comments in the form of neutrality to not conflict my business interests.
Okay.
But I think it all boils down to this is a Ford or Chevy conversation, and I don't think there's any wrong answers. We just bought a Tesla at home, and it does things that I never imagined that a car could do, and I never before and still don't know why you need any of those gee whiz funny things that a car can do. But it sure is fun, and it makes the enjoyment of the vehicle more entertaining. And I think that's what it gets down to. That, I mean, the 280 and the 350 are obviously both amazing airplanes. The thing that I think about all the time, which is, and I'm going to conflict a little bit about my statement of neutrality, but the ease of operation of an airplane, I think makes a lot of sense. And so, if you're looking at just the simplistic form of the more units there are floating around there, one must deduce that they get easier to operate when there are more of them out there. There's going to be more simulators for training. There's going to be more maintenance technicians that are factory service center trained on that model of airplane. And
wait, would this include the factory having more parts in stock then too? Normally, like if you call, you can just get whatever part you want.
Yeah, and stocked in the warehouse is probably more valuable to me than the size of the screen in the cabin, whether it's 19 inches or 24 inches, and whether it's 4K or not. None of that matters if the airplane's sitting on the ramp. And I'm not specifically stating that either of those airplanes has a better service volume, but I do have a bit of experience over the years in operating airplanes that are a little off the beaten path. And I think we talked about in my early days, I flew Mitsubishi Diamond Jets, and then we also had for a short stint a G150. And there's a reason people buy those sorts of airplanes, because they're the G150 in particular, because it's, my God, it's fast and it's got range to go anywhere, and a nice big mid-sized jet cabin, and it's fast. But it was, what we found, it was just incredibly difficult to actually operate the airplane. Things like finding contractors to fly the airplane. We were routinely flying contract pilots in from other corners of the country, and I mean that by every corner of the country, to get a 1 or 2 day trip flown, and it just became quite cumbersome in that scenario. Meanwhile, with our Challenger 300 series, contractors are available, and wheels and brakes and parts and windshields, and I say windshields. We haven't bought one here recently, but overall the support has been really good. The the G280 shines in a lot of areas, and the fact that you can make a conference seating arrangement in the 280 that you can't do in the 350 is, I think, that probably, in my opinion, is one of the selling points for somebody that's on the fence between those two airplanes. Is it gets down to what kind of seating configuration do you want to have? You want to have a double club, or a side facing divan, or a conference seating. And in representing one of these airplanes for sale, we've learned that the buyers of these airplanes are grafted directly at, not only I want a 280, but I will only accept a 280 with the conference seating, or I will only accept a 280 with the side facing divan. And so it does kind of narrow down the buyers. But when you're selling one, that means that that if you have a buyer that's interested in the model that that you're representing, then it makes it easier to get to a deal on it.
Well, what about this, Brooks? Which one do you think is more comfortable for your dog, though? That's really we came to a head on that question with the floor, situation, and enough with the people. Which one is more comfortable for the animals, though?
Well, and I think I did say that some of those things were the most important part about buying airplanes, but I think you are correct in that how the dog feels in the airplane matters more than anything. It would have to be a
probably
flat
yes.
the dog can't sleep in an aisle. They have to be on a flat floor.
Right.
See, I told you.
Yeah. You're right. You got me with that. You're right. I mean, there's no way to argue that.
I didn't even know that it came in the conference set seating. I'm looking at the floor plan now. That is unique.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty interesting. Did you look at those, Max, when you guys were
shopping?
Yeah.
Yeah. We for sure did. It's kind of the seats are definitely narrower than the rest of the seats on the airplane. Right. So it's which is common, I guess, on most conference groups. But
yeah, I think it matters whether you like to play a game of pitch while you're sitting in the back of an airplane, or whether you're doing any work. I think probably pitch trumps working in the back of an airplane, and I think people might use work as an excuse for buying a conference seating, but I think it's the guys that like to have fun and play cards.
Yeah, there you go. Well said. Okay, and from a flying standpoint, have you flown the 280, Brooks?
I have not. I have been in the back of a 280. We have we've done factory demos with our clients on both the 280 and not the 350, but we did a demo on a 350 and a 280 within a month of each other, and they're both just wonderful, delightful airplanes.
Did you have a chance to use the lavatory on both, Brooks?
Oh, come on, Max.
Just so you're speaking of the velocity in which the fluids are sucked down.
Yes.
Is that what really matters?
Well, the fluids, along with any offensive smells, are just vacuumed right out of there, into a separate tank. It's really a thing of beauty.
Max, I did hear from you, as many of our listeners know, we're both in the same hangar, and our line guys said that the door is much more difficult to close on your airplane.
Oh,
because
you
got to reach.
I will give you a point for that. The door is not my favorite situation on it. Like, you close it, and then it kind of, when you latch it, it slides down, and I feel like it's going to cut off a limb. It takes
That's
a little. It takes a little getting used to, and too, like when you pop the door, you have to push it in to and then it releases and comes down. It takes a little getting used to.
The debate will rage on, I guess. Any closing remarks on that, Brooks, before we move on?
I think we've just spent enough time. At the end of the day, we've spent enough time telling everybody that it doesn't matter what you buy; they're both good airplanes.
Yeah.
But I will say this, Brooks, Max and I mentioned before in an episode, it's almost kind of like the perfect size airplane, in my opinion. It's big enough where you can kind of almost do anything. Not, it's not built to do long haul international, but you could certainly do some international travel. It's small enough where you can still get into most airports without an issue. I don't know. To me, that's the Goldilocks zone airplane. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're rarely dealing with, looking at the load bearing capacity of the runways you're going into,
Yeah.
and they both have tremendous stopping distance, and the takeoff performance is as good as a Citation Excel.
Yeah.
They both just run circles around their predecessors, and I think that's kind of a novelty in some of those cases, in that the way we operate these mid-size super mid business jets, you just kind of don't, you're not kind of really looking for 3,000 foot runways and 4,000 foot runways. And so the difference between, 2,300 and 2,500 feet of stopping distance or so, I just don't think it matters. If you're going in runways like that, you're kind of doing it in the wrong airplane to begin with, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Max, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the marketplace. You were mentioning that you saw an interesting article from AIN. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it just came in today, as a matter of fact. I mean, literally less than an hour ago. It's just talking about the pre-owned BizJet market in an adjustment period, and it says that, increase in inventory levels and the expansion in inventory is occurring alongside a softening of the market. So I just kind of wanted to see, Brooks, what your take was, if you kind of mirror what this is saying, or what you think is going on in the market right now.
Yeah. So in particular, it's a good time to be a turboprop owner trading up to a business jet right now. So I have clients of mine that have been holding off or waiting at my recommendation, that that have wanted to make that jump and moved, say, from a King Air 350 or a Pilatus up to a Citation XLS or something of that nature. And my message has been, I from a gut 2 years ago said, I just don't feel like the time is right. Everything is up there, and the time to trade up is when the market's on the downhill slope. The time to trade down is when the market's at its peak, right? Because if the percentages are roughly the same, you're buying less airplane with less money. More airplane with less money.
Right.
And so I think that's the important part. And so right now we're transitioning 3 different clients right now out of turboprop airplanes into mid-size business airplanes, business jets. Just kind of looking at the market right now, if you look at airplanes that have historically been very, very low inventory available, look at the Sovereign right now is there's 28 units for sale out of representing a little over 8.5 or 8.2% of the market available. The XLS has not been above 5% in 2 years. And then you look at airplanes. The King Air 350 has a 3.7% market availability or units on the market, and then you get into some of the PC-12 series, and 17 of 548 legacy PC-12s are on the market, or only 3.1% of the market. So And that number has not changed, meaning that the inventory levels, there's been a kind of a steady pipeline of, one unit goes off the market, another one kind of comes on the market, and so you've seen not a big change in inventory. You start looking at Hawker 400 XPs, and you're at that north of a year's worth of inventory right now, 12.2%. Now, some of that is an age conversation. I have not spoken about the new late model airplanes, but the G280, for example, that's a market we follow very, very closely, and there's 3.3% of the G280 market available for sale, and really only one unit north of, or being within a couple of years old that's available to be bought right now. So it's a very unique market, and I do think what we're seeing is across the board, we're seeing inventory levels come on the market, inventory levels increasing rather, and we're kind of in a little bit of a standoff in terms of nobody wants to really start down on a pricing trend. We're seeing price reductions, but they're still hovering, double digits north of where they were in 22 and the first 3 quarters of 23. So I think the market remains strong and stable in that we're hovering in that very nicely balanced market, or approaching a nicely balanced market. We're still in certain fleets, inventory levels still need to come up, a point or two to achieve a full balanced market. But I think the door is open for buyers and sellers that are fair and reasonable in their pricing objectives to transact deals here this year. And I think there's the old saying that if you can't buy it at 8%, you shouldn't buy it at 3%. And so I do think interest rates have something to do with this, but I don't think that it is really swinging the pendulum all that much right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just so funny to draw the parallels between this and the housing market right now, where I think the housing market is different because the gridlock is coming from the interest rates, but it sort of feels like there is a little bit of a sort of fairness in pricing in some areas. It's funny because I know Max and I always say that the best way to define is a fair deal is when both parties go through with it, but neither party is like really happy about the price, and that kind of seems to be usually how it works. It's like, fine, I'll do that, but you're not getting that steal that you thought you were, or you're not selling it for way more than it's worth. But I guess that's kind of what you want as someone that's involved in the transactions, though, right? Is you want all the parties to be kind of getting a good deal. But
yeah. So I would say to add to that, in terms of pricing and speaking about both parties leave feeling like all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
To add to that, I think what I have enjoyed is that now we're back to being able to do pre-buy inspections, but
Oh yeah.
but we're not back to we're going to do an A through D check on an airplane as a pre-buy and hope that you have to pay for a whole bunch of stuff. So the work scope seems to be falling in line with pricing as well, in that pricing is, I think, at and where it should be, or hovering, approaching where pricing should be. But I also think, and I like that the general sentiment between buyer and seller on pre-buy inspections tends to be more realistic, in that we get within the right price point, and we're able to do a reasonable pre-buy now to make sure that when we're investing a ton of, several $1,000,000 into an airplane, that we have an airplane that is as represented. But we're not there looking for, or we no longer have buyers that expect that we can put an airplane through a 90-day pre-buy at a service center. So I think that's as healthy as the pricing that we're seeing. Everybody's kind of coming back to a more neutral tone on the inspection conversation. So I think that's healthy.
Oh, that's good insight.
Yeah, and we talked to James.
I remember those.
We talked to James on our last episode about, kind of from the pilot market. We had to pull out the furlough flute and play a couple notes because of Spirit and some other stuff going on. But overall, that from the airline perspective, the market was fairly healthy because passenger demand was there. And if you look at the airplane sales market, that seems healthy too. But the passengers are also the people that are buying these airplanes. And when you have that little inventory still on the market, it just kind of points to the fact that aviation as a whole is still healthy. Like, things are going well on airline, corporate side, and everywhere. So let's hope it holds together.
Yeah, it is. I think we've got certainly the year ahead is relatively smooth sailing. We do have an election coming up, but I think that we've got some pretty smooth waters ahead. I'm excited about the remainder of the year.
Brooks said we're going to have a smooth election. Perfect. All right.
I didn't say that.
We'll put it
you
on
heard it
TikTok.
here first.
Good. All right. Thank you, Brooks. Appreciate that. Let's take a time out from our conversation to talk about another friend of ours, Timothy P. Pope, who's a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance strategies for professional pilots on the Pilot Money podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. All right, Brooks, we want to get into the meat of this conversation here, and we want to talk a little bit about pilot ego and managing pilot ego a little bit. But an aircraft transaction is an interesting situation for a professional pilot, especially if we're talking about like a chief pilot or lead captain, director of aviation, something like that, where they're used to kind of being the man in as far as being the source of knowledge often for the principal or the owner of the aircraft and kind of the go-to person when there are questions about the airplane. But oftentimes in a transaction, this third party comes in here. Often you or someone like you is brought in to represent your flight department or your owner. And I just wanted to maybe go through what that's like as a pilot. How do we manage this where we've got this kind of other third party that's in there that's maybe going to be talking with the owner directly and we don't even know what's going on, and maybe they're picking an airplane out without our input, or like how can we find the right role and how do we handle all this? I think it's probably pretty complex, so curious if you could kind of walk us through some observations, maybe some mistakes that pilots have made in the past, and maybe some best practices we can adopt going forward. Is that enough for you?
Yeah, that's a ton, and that's an area where there just is no right answer or wrong answer. And I would pin that back to what's the relationship of all and history of all the parties involved. And there's a multitude of different scenarios. Interestingly enough, I'll share a story. I'm representing an airplane that's off market, and the seller was a little bit frustrated that we were transacting a north of $20 million airplane, and the buyer used his his chief pilot as his mouthpiece, and we never had any direct communication with the actual buyer. And that the entirety of the conversation was through the lens of his chief pilot. And the conversation I had with my client, who was noticeably frustrated in that he felt as if this didn't feel real to him, and I had to kind of have a long conversation to explain the notion that you never know the relationship between the principal or the owner of an airplane and their chief pilot. Their chief pilot could also be the vice president of the company, or their chief pilot could be somebody that's been with them for 30 years. And so you have to evaluate all of the emotion involved. And that, in my case, in our business, the longer that I am around somebody, and the longer that I observe their decision making and their style of decision making, the less interested I am in being involved in the intricate details of their daily decision making process. And what seems like a very huge emotional decision about purchasing an airplane, to some people really is not. And that they're just transportation. Or I have communicated with my people, this is what I'm looking for, and these are the things that are important to me, and I trust them to go out and find the right people and the right machines and put this together for me and report back to me that we found a solution, and tell me where to wire the money, sort of thing. And that happens. And I think it's like listening to a symphony when that happens. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience for all parties involved, if that truly is the way that it is, and that it allows somebody like us as a broker, or representing an airplane, or representing them in a buying scenario. It allows a great flow of communication. The catch there is that all the emotions and the egos have to be checked at the door, in that the chief pilot, if everyone is aligned in that we're all here for the right reason, we're all trying to do the best work for the owner of the airplane, then it's just a delightful experience. The flip side to that is that a chief pilot, or a pilot, or at any level, if they've been placed in that scenario, and they're not able to give all of their trust in whoever they're working with, that makes for a very tumultuous experience, and that you're very guarded in the manner in which you communicate. And so we find that when there is that scenario, we work really hard to keep a very open dialogue, and all communication to all parties at the same time. And frankly, just like any sort of interpersonal relationship, you have to craft your style of communication for the audience that's in front of you, and so you spend a lot of time doing that. But the worst scenario is when an airplane owner goes and makes a decision in the cloak of darkness, in that when the flight crew doesn't know, and you then have to be careful about all of the emotions involved. And 90% of the time, an airplane owner is not doing so out of malice, but might pick up the phone. These are the sorts of people that these things are living, breathing machines, and they have personalities to them. The machines, not the people. and these are people that are want to be very involved in picking the location of the stripe colors on the side of the airplane, sort of people. And uh, oftentimes you find those people with that much emotion involved and that demeanor involved, oftentimes almost by omission or by accident, kind of forget to bring their flight crew along with them in on the emotional journey of buying an airplane, and so they are surprised. And what's even worse is that they might get little tidbits of the transaction, and so they feel left out. And pilots in general, I am a pilot as well, and I know the emotion of feeling that, well, why isn't he talking to me? Am I going to get to fly the new airplane, or all of those sorts of emotions? And so we often spend as much time coaching the owner of an airplane, that we're going to put the airplane up for sale, for example. And our message first is, have you talked to your pilots yet, and have you given them notice? Because we sure don't want the airplane to hit the market unless your pilots are aware that, hey, here we have a transition plan, or we're going to put the airplane on the market, but we are going to replace it with something else, so you're still going to have a job, or whatever the narrative is. And sometimes it's not a rosy narrative. Sometimes it's, hey, we're going to downsize the flight department, or we've got to get out of the airplane, and this is your notice that we're going to have to do that. But it's just easier and cleaner if we can make sure that that communication is out of the way, because nobody wants to hear that communication from a broker representing the airplane saying, hey, can you tell me where the keys are? We're here to take pictures of it. And
Max, didn't you do a trip with a guy who, like, he was looking through the controller while you guys were flying and saw the airplane listed?
Yeah,
he's like, wait, is this my airplane?
Yeah, that happened one time. That's not the way you want to find out. But
it's not. As in every profession, there is varying degrees of competency, and levels of professionalism amongst all of us as aviators, and so it's quite enjoyable for us when we have a good, strong, chief pilot or captain, or in the case of somebody that is in over their head in the transactional realm of transactional realm of buying or selling an airplane, or then all of the steps that happen on the backside of, okay, we bought the airplane, now how are we going to get the flight department set up, or how are we going to do that? That's quite enjoyable to help kind of bring along somebody that is a very competent airman, but yet doesn't have quite that level of experience in transitioning from one model to another, particularly if you're jumping, taking a step or two uphill in terms of the size of the airplane. And the things that you see click in people's heads, like coming from a small, light jet, or up into a super mid-size airplane, is it's not about flying the airplane. It's about all the other stuff that goes into operating the airplane, and planning ahead for planning to get the galley stocked the way that it needs to be, and thinking of all those little things of how you load bags for 10 people in an airplane that well, you guys have met me in person, so you'll know that my height plays into this. But how you plan to load 9 sets of golf clubs into a Challenger 300 when the to get to the baggage compartment, it's a 2-person operation, and just lots of little things like that it's kind of fun as part of the transaction of helping people buy and sell airplanes, helping transition their crews into learning a little bit about operating their new airplane is kind of fun too. So
Yeah. And having been part of a couple of transactions before, like I think as the lead pilot, to be involved is important. But you also have to know where your lane is and what your part is in the transaction, and to let the broker who you've retained to work on your behalf, to let them do their job without getting in the way. And I think that's sometimes, pilots have been known to get in their own way or in other people's ways by being a little over ambitious or whatnot. But I think when you have a good relationship between the buyer, seller, and the broker and their lead pilot or chief pilot or whoever, and everyone kind of knows what their part in the transaction is, that's probably the best kind of transaction to have. Would you say?
I could not agree more. And we have a part of our safety culture in our company is communications are our best safety tool, and we all know that from the cockpit environment, but that descends into all other areas of aviation and frankly all areas of business. But a kind of a pre-launch briefing between the owner and their flight crew and a good broker tends to set the right tone for success down the road. And so my recommendation, I guess, if you're asking for one, is whether you're an airplane owner and contemplating a change or a movement in a transaction, particularly if it's especially a positive one, meaning we're just going to trade models or trade vintages or something of that nature. That or a flight crew is, let's pre-brief what we're doing here and get everybody's expectations out on the table. And another thing to talk about, I think that's very, very important, is that sometimes the role of a third-party broker is to support the needs of the flight crew. And what I mean by that is we talk about, I think we've talked about kind of the Bob the pilot story, I think, in one of our earlier podcasts. But so I won't spend too much time going into that. But as a third party that's not going to be involved on a day-to-day operational standpoint with the airplane, we're kind of neutral and unbiased. And if the flight crew is able to say to us, hey, this is what our real operations are, and we go into these airports and we need this equipment to do that, that comes better sometimes from us, or us saying, I know you really like the cabin of this airplane, but this airplane may make more sense for your operation. And oftentimes, I think pilots can be reserved in their communication, because none of us want to sound like, I want you to get me the new fancier avionics, or I want the vacuum flushing lav versus the old toilets in the other airplanes. But you see where I'm going with that, in that sometimes it's good to be able to be an advocate for the flight crew, to say, this makes more sense if you contemplate doing this, because it will allow you to go to these other airports, or that sort of thing. And so we that's kind of rewarding, actually, to be honest, to be able to support flight crew in that scenario. And I think you earn a lot of trust in knowing that we're representing everybody's best interest, including the flight crews.
That's well said. Yeah. Like Max indicated, I think, it's knowing where your lane is, and You got to make it's okay to bring an outside expert in sometimes. You're not the only one that knows everything about aviation. All right, Brooks, before we let you go, we need to get a little update on the DC3. Are you going to take it for a spin this summer? Where can folks see it?
We are for sure headed to Oshkosh, and we'll be there all week at Oshkosh, and looking forward to seeing everybody. And shoot us a quick note. We'll be doing as many flight opportunities for those that are there that would like to go for a quick tour around Oshkosh. You don't have to stand in line to ride in the Tri-Motor or the B-17 and pay for it. We're going to be there doing some flying just for the sport of it and just for fun. And the more people we can get interested in our airplane, in our DC-3, I think that's what it's there for. So we didn't buy that airplane to make money with it. We bought it to share the joy of a cool old DC-3. I think when you guys were in it, we had not yet redone the interior, but the interior looks like a Gulfstream now. So we've got a nice, big, beautiful cabin in the airplane, and looking forward to being at Oshkosh to share it with everybody.
Ooh. Man, that is tempting. Max, I may have to reschedule my plans here.
Well, listen, Dylan, I don't know if you remember, I already got to fly in the DC-3 with Brooks and got to fly it, from the left seat. So you may have to go to Oshkosh. He brought it to me right at my home airport, so I was just very lucky.
It's just the kind of guy he is. Well, Brooks,
one up, and you need to
right.
just and come to Kansas with us, and then you can fly it all the way to Oshkosh.
Oh,
No,
there you go.
Don't hold your breath.
Challenge
Brooks.
accepted.
Don't hold your breath.
Let's see. All right, Brooks. Well, we always appreciate your insight into all things in the aircraft transaction space, and especially when it comes to managing these transactions a little bit. I think it's interesting. It's one of those things that I think, especially watching Max go through it a few times, and my experiences as well, you kind of, as from the pilot standpoint, got to learn it yourself in some ways. And so I think being able to talk about it a little bit, hopefully will be helpful for our listeners. Of course, we encourage everyone to check the show notes for Brooks's contact information and shoot him an email. Let him know if you're going to be at Oshkosh. Sounds like you can go for a ride. That's a pretty great offer.
We'll have a lot of fun up there. Guys, thank you for having me again. Always enjoy getting to chat with you guys, and look forward to coming back soon.
All right.
Brooks.
Always a pleasure, Brooks.
Thank you very much. All right, Max, that was such a good conversation with Brooks. He is the best. I really enjoy his perspective. It's cool, too, that he has such a wide range of background where it's not like he's just a salesperson. He's also a pilot, and he also manages pilots and aircraft and everything.
Yeah.
So it's a really holistic view that he brings.
Hey, Brooks, he's no one-trick pony,
That is right. You know what? I really think this Oshkosh trip might come together, too. I'm really hoping to be there and check that airplane out.
Finally, you'll gain the upper hand on this.
Could be.
If you get to fly the DC-3, I'm going to be very happy for you.
So to wrap up with the most quoted "What About Bob" references in my family, because this is a very popular movie in my family. They do. We always do this one in the beginning where he's meeting with Richard Dreyfuss for the first time. And he goes, "Bob, there's a groundbreaking new book," and it's his bookshelf is filled with his
Let's
books.
see, where?
He pretends
there it
to
is.
look for it. There's 100 books on his shelf.
Baby steps to the door. Baby steps to the elevator. It's working.
Oh, that's right. Where was now? Final question. Do you remember where the summer vacation house was in?
Lake Winnipesaukee.
I think that's New.
Don't
Is that New
me.
Hampshire?
Yeah, it is. It's I've
you
been there.
have?
It's awesome.
Is it
Looks
pretty
beautiful?
cool? Okay. Very interesting. All right. Well, that was our.
I went there to get some death therapy.
Because he writes the death therapy book at the end, right? I mean, that's his whole thing. So good.
Yeah. That's the whole thing.
Spoiler alert. I love it.
Bob.
Faye. The wife's name is Faye, and I remember he eats the corn.
Oh,
and
Faye.
Faye, is this corn hand shucked?
Hey, this is. gimme! I need.
All right, we're gonna have to. I gotta go jump on an airliner after this. So maybe I'm gonna download this maybe and watch it.
Young guys are like, what is this movie?
This? Go watch
these idiots.
Go watch What About, along with the book club. Go watch What About Bob if you've never seen it. It's good stuff. That is going to do it. You have joined us for another episode of the 21.5 show. Possible vacation break here after this episode. We're not sure yet. We've got a lot of balls in the air here. So
very busy.
You might have an extra
Summer's
week.
very short.
Yeah.
You people with kids will realize summer's become somehow 2 months, and you have 4 months of stuff to do.
That's right.
While working.
Be very aggressive. So
tough.
You might have some extra time to read the book club chapter, but we'll be back soon-ish to do the next installment of that, answer your questions, and read the mailbag. Thanks so much to Brooks at Vaerus Jet Sales. Thanks to Tim Pope, Advanced Air Crew Academy, Harvey Watt, and the Aircom Calculator, all of our sponsors, all of the listeners. We will talk to you guys in a couple of hours and a couple of weeks.
What? I was going to say, what?
We'll be back.
What do you have lined up for us?
Bob?
What am I missing?
Bob? Until then, remember, flexibility is the key to air power. Bye, Bob.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.